So the government has announced a new refugee policy, and it's not good. Asylum seekers crossing the channel in boats will be sent to Rwanda for processing, and where they will have the right to apply to live in the African country. Now what this means is we are going to send them there and they have to stay there. Gillian Triggs, an Assistant Secretary General at the UNHCR, said the agency strongly condemns outsourcing the primary responsibility to consider the refugee status. Now clearly we don't need a UN official to point out how bad this is, but it does hammer the point home further. Now other people on Twitter have expressed their anger, including Labour MP Diane Abbott. She says, shipping asylum seekers 5,000 miles to Rwanda for processing is both cruel and bizarre, and at a cost of up to £100,000 per asylum seeker. It is a ridiculously expensive way to pander to racists. Another tweet from Lewis Garland, the UK demanded Rwanda be investigated for disappearances and torture. We are now planning to fly asylum seekers to Rwanda to have their cases processed on offshore detention centres. The anti-refugee bill and everyone who supports it deserve nothing but contempt. I of course 100% agree with that, but of course we've got some Tory spokesman with their bullshit argument. Simon Hart, the Wales Secretary, said it would deter criminal gangs and reduce exploitation by making it no longer viable to smuggle vulnerable people into the UK. This doesn't solve the problem, it exacerbates it. It won't stop people smuggling. All it does is pass the buck to other nations. People are still going to come here. People aren't going to stop trying to get to Europe because it's a lot safer than the places they're fleeing from. All it does is just add more obstacles, and with more obstacles comes more danger. But here's the thing, not only is it, well, yeah, clearly immoral, the policy has been proven to actually not work. It's been tried in a couple of nations, Australia, Denmark, and Israel. Between 2014 and 2017, Israel is estimated to have deported around 4,000 asylum seekers to Rwanda and Uganda. Now, in turn, what happened was nearly every single one of them left. Some were actually smuggled back. Some were potentially trapped with ISIS and other militias, so they were putting themselves in more danger. They weren't putting themselves in more danger, they were forced to be in more danger. Now, there were only 6 of that 4,000 that stayed in Rwanda. Now, they did an interview with Haaretz, an Israeli newspaper, and this is what they found. All 6 live a meagre existence in Kigali, struggling to survive. So not only is it immoral and disgusting, it's been a huge policy failure. Australia and Denmark also tried their hand in something similar with the same results. Australia first began using offshore detention centres in 2001. Thousands of asylum seekers have been transferred out of Australia during this time. Its border force has said that more than 4,000 were relocated between 2012 and 2019. Now, 13 of those that were sent to Nauru and Papua New Guinea have died from violence, medical inattention, or suicide. Bear Ralsbichani spoke of his experience on Manus Island, that was like a prison, that they felt like they were deliberately made to humiliate us and destroy us. Why do the Tories hate refugees? And I say refugees, it's certain refugees, if you get my gist. But we've had a part in this, whether it's bombing other nations, whether it's invading other nations, whether it's war, whether it's our colonial past. We've had a massive role to play when it comes to refugees. Bombing someone's nation, what they're going to do, they're going to try and find a place to live. Therefore, our response needs to be, one, a humane one, but also a logical one. And the logical policy would be to accept them here. There were also, rightly, concerns from top civil servants. They highly criticised the policy. They were worried about the policy. But Priti Patel used her ministerial direction to essentially overrule them. Now, Priti Patel's response to the criticisms she has received was essentially, well, do it yourself then. What an incredibly weird and frankly childish response from a Home Secretary. Also notice the glaring hypocrisy when it comes to refugees. If this was simply about the safety of refugees, then why isn't the same logic being applied to Ukraine? Does it have to do with something that they are, I don't know, white Europeans? Now, we have a poll from YouGov. When asked whether we should export people to Rwanda, a majority of people oppose the government on this. It's not a massive majority, but a significant one. The government holds certain human beings in contempt. That is abundantly clear. There is no cost crisis. There is no space crisis. 95% of the country isn't built on. Britain is not full. The fact that the Tories are pretending to give a shit about asylum seekers, pretending that this is a beacon of humanity, adds more insult to the wound. Our country lets refugees drown all of the time. And as part of the government's nationality and borders bill, they want to make border forces immune from prosecution if their actions lead to deaths at sea. Whenever you walk down the road and you see concrete spikes, or if you see a park bench with conveniently an armrest right in the middle of it, these are anti-homelessness policies, but they don't deal with the crisis. They just shun the policy from one place to another. Out of sight, out of mind. And then they turn around and say, hey, look, we've dealt with homelessness. This is the exact same thing. We are entering a crisis of refugees due to war, due to scarcity, and due to increasingly the climate. There's going to be more climate refugees. Now, richer nations play a bigger role in this. Obviously, when it comes to, as I said before, war, interventionism, invasion, and also when it comes to the climate, Britain, US, the West, are one of the biggest bad players when it comes to the climate catastrophe. Therefore, we have a responsibility, a humane responsibility, to accept refugees. But, this is probably, this is one of the most shocking and reactionary governments Britain has ever endured.